Okie doke, it's the 18th of August, 2015. Now I get Josh off of there. Now there, we want to get that belt line a little bit more bent over, so a little bit more butt out, back is straighter, and instead of pointing way off over here, we want that belt line to point about a foot past the ball. So it just feels like you're sticking your butt out is basically what it is. We don't need to change the knee flex. The back will get a little bit straighter when you do that. Put Ernie Els next to you here. Actually, this is one of my star kids. He just turned pro. See how the belt line points about a foot past the ball? So it's not that much more bend than what you've got. Somebody a little taller here. Basically the same. Ernie Els, and you can see how with Ernie, his belt line points just about a foot or so past the ball. But the ideal angle is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 degrees. 40 to 45 we'd allow, but 40 is the ideal angle. Not that you're going to need your protractor to figure this out because your angle is already fine. It's just we just need to kind of grab you by the hips and tilt them downward just a little bit more. So like I said, butt out is going to be the feeling. And you probably were doing that, like you said, you just forgot. All right, so get rid of that. Use him as a model here. So before, you were really wrapping the club around you because there was a zero width, and you see your hands are pointing where they're supposed to be. That's where if you moved your butt out, the belt line would be pointing right there. Your arms aren't super long, are they? The normal length? Normal, pretty much normal for your height? Yeah, so if you push your butt out a little bit more, then your belt buckle would get right in line with that, because there's nothing wrong with where your arms are hanging and obviously gripping into the fingers to get a nice angle here. So we were talking about staying a little bit more on the plane instead of getting too much under it, and the key to that is that right arm staying much straighter. Look at how much improvement that is. That's awesome. Now it's not tiger width, and as I say, we can be talking about width forever. So if I saw you for the first time, I'm not sure if I would even talk about this, so that's how good it is, and that's pretty good for me because I'm pretty picky. But that's much improved on the width. And then the question of when it should fold, it's hard to quantify that exactly, but it'll be folded to 90 degrees at the top, so it's basically as straight as possible. You're better than Ernie at that point. Not as good as Tiger, but better than Ernie at that point. Better than me at that point, which isn't saying much because my width is not good. But see how it gradually folds up. So he's not 90 yet. When he gets back to the half position, he won't quite be 90 at that point. He'll be almost 90. And then by the time he gets to a full position, which really is right here for an iron, that's 90 degrees. So you can, if you need some engineering details, we could make them up, but that'd be about all it is, because it's just a gradual blending from maybe 10 degrees of bend at this point to 90 degrees at the top. So when you're at the halfway point, it's going to be about 65, 70 maybe. But that's a little too much bend at that point. So I want to see that at that point. I love the position much better, because remember you're over here before, correct? But that right arm should be pointing to the ground a little bit more and a little bit more extended. So when it does bend, we don't want it going behind us. We want to keep it more in front of us. You see how his elbow points to the ground? Let me back him down to that half position, because he would be a good picture comparison for you. When that left arm is parallel to the ground, those look pretty equal right there, don't they? Yeah, that's pretty good. So at that point, you can see his right arm is not quite 90, and the elbow is definitely pointing more to the ground. If it points that much out at that point, it's got no place to go but out as you finish the backswing. So it's flying out a little bit there. And still, that's so much higher and so much better. But with that elbow out, it tends to make this club go this way a little bit. With the elbow down, he can keep that club pointing more to the target. So a good checkpoint for you at this halfway back point, or even beyond the halfway, is that this shaft should point down at the target line. So once you've started that elbow lifting up, you've lifted that a little bit above the plane. The hands are in the right place, but the club, because of the elbow, you could just see the impact of that. It just tilts it across. So that's going to be a really good, that's our next checkpoint. The quarter position, the right arm doesn't bend at all, and you're doing great with that, but at this point we want that elbow to be a little straighter and point to the ground. We saw that with the rope. We did the rope deal that right arm just wants to bend a little too much, which made the left arm bend too much. But look how good your left arm is. And I think I explained to you how important it was to do the width with the right arm rather than left, because that creates a lot of stiffness. So as that elbow goes out, it takes us across the line. Watch Ernie, he's going to continue pointing at the target line. You see how as it goes up, it's still pointing the extension of that line goes out down the target line. There's plenty of guys on tour that go across the line. I was a scratch player when I was 15, going all the way over to here, you know, so you can recover from that, but it just requires more work. If you keep that elbow down, that's the single biggest thing that's moving that club across. So elbow down and wide as possible. Now as we start down, you can see that because that got across the line and out, it's coming down a little bit steep. So you had a perfect downswing plane when you had a bad backswing plane, but now that we're up here, we got to get that a little bit more tucked in. So let me get him to the same spot. Show you what we're looking for on the downswing. The next step for you developmentally is to get that backswing to where at the halfway back point, the elbow's pointed more down, a little wider, and then point that at the target line. There's a drill called the T to T drill where you have a T stuck in the end of the club, and you point the T at a T on the ground over here, and then there's another T on the ground over here that you point that T on the through swing, so it's very symmetrical. But if we look at the backswing, he's over the bicep, and let's look at the downswing, and I can take that back a little ways, he's over the bicep on the downswing too. As we go a little further, that's a extremely important checkpoint for you there. That's the entry point we want. And now think about how we get there.
And when you say the entry point, that close
yeah,
to the plane?
that close to the plane. Yep, exactly. That's perfect right there. That's a checkpoint I always use. That let's examine his see if we can do a little edifying here from this point here. That point, his right arm's relatively straight, not quite as good as you, but pretty straight. It gradually folds up, which as it folds up, that's what brings you up the plane. So it continues to fold up until he gets to 90 degrees. Now he's getting ready to make an error here that he's going to correct for on the downswing. He's going to go a little too far in his swing, and the only way he can do that is by folding that right arm a little too much. So that right arm's going to fold past 90, allowing him to get this ridiculously long swing. So that right arm has gone past 90. Now for most people that would be a big error, because just like the plane, if you overfold this, it's going to be difficult to get back down on the correct plane. But he matches that mistake with a correction, whereas he starts down, he straightens his right arm back out to the perfect extension. So two wrongs make a right, and now his right arm is extended, putting him back on a perfect plane. Your right arm was actually good at the top, except for the elbow was out, so it wasn't really prone to extending back out on that plane. It was happy to hang out here behind you a little bit. So as you start down, that right arm has to straighten in order for us to come down plane. It's really not possible to get up plane without the right arm folding, or down plane without the right arm extending. So you're coming down, and at that point, if we had the same extension of the right arm as he does, you'd be in exactly the same spot. So I'm not saying the right arm is the key to that, but since we need to work on the right arm for the backswing, it's a pretty good image. That right arm brings you up the plane, the right arm brings you down. That way you keep your mind on the same track with the right arm. Chuck Cook is a famous teacher out in Texas, and he likes to focus on the right arm a lot, because most people are right-handed, and it's just kind of an easy key. But now as we're coming down on too steep of a plane, the tendency is now for that club to release a little early, and then it's going to angle it over to the left. So it's really not, it doesn't go left because you're swinging left. You're swinging in a little steep, which makes you release early, and that's really where I wanted to go today anyway. But I do want to touch on that. But that's good as it gets coming through. Watch how well that matches up with him on the through swing. See, this look two brothers from a different mother there. That's just the same thing. So this is great. Your width is better coming through, width is better going back, but we just need to work on that right elbow position on the backswing, and that's the next step. And then if the right arm doesn't come down from the inside and do the right thing, then the left arm gets a little chicken wing. We can't get so the left arm, we could tell him the same thing. He should always point to the ground as much as he can. But we don't want to put the emphasis on straightening with the left, although a lot of people would have you believe that. So what a difference in the setup. Just great. The grip looks great. The setup looks great. You got that perfect reverse K. Watch how nicely it matches up with him. This is an old picture, but it's a great example. So there you can see you're just as good as he is with that reverse K setup. You could maybe be a touch more lean to the right. If we box you in from ankle to ankle, you can see you got broad shoulders too, but you're hanging out a little bit this way more than you're hanging out that way. So a little bit more lean. He's got a full 9 or 10 degrees of lean, and you're way better than you were. But I stand corrected. That's pretty darn good. I drew that a little bit more forward maybe, but that's pretty darn good. That's a big improvement. But I still think you can, being big chested, you need a little bit more. I have about a 12-degree lean, just because it's the bigger you are in the chest, the more important it is to get lean back. Plus, now watch this backswing now. Watch as you go back. And we'll be able to pick on the right arm again. So your width is much better. And like I said, your right arm was straighter than his, but the difference is now, when he goes back, even though your right arm position was better, notice he's got a little bit more space in here. Why? Because he's turning his body, and he has a little bit more lean to begin with. So the backswing should be largely about the body. The right arm doesn't do anything but stay straight as it can, and you just turn back with the body and let the arms kind of float along like they're going to. So we need a little bit of space in here that'll come from a little bit better setup and a little bit more turn. Make sense? So we get that hands width space. And then now the right arm gradually bends, but partly because I didn't get you clear on what that arm was supposed to do and when you're supposed to bend, because I didn't want to go past that point. We wanted to make sure we had that covered in the hour. But now, if you don't do anything with it, then it's just going to go, what the heck am I supposed to do? And it goes out instead of going down. So I think now just that understanding the elbow is going to go down to fold up. But if you look at that when it's halfway back, you've almost reached 90 degrees. We're going to call that 90 degrees for all intents and purposes. Watch how his right elbow is tucking downward just a little bit more. So your elbow stays on top, and at that point it should start working down and under. So right elbow points to the ground and stays straight. And good pivot of the body. So you can see you're very, very well matched with him at that point. Everything but the right elbow. Oh, what a great pivot. That's awesome. So that setup just made for a lot better pivoting action there. Now, as he comes down, this goes back to Gumby status here with that right arm overfolding. And then he corrects it with the extension of the arm. A lot of people just look and say, man, how flexible is he? But it's just because he overfolds. I haven't figured out, nor have the physical therapist and physiology people that I've asked how he gets that left arm to stay straight when his right arm folds that much. It's just it's a weird dynamic. But as he comes back down, that's the next big checkpoint. So the half, we should have a hands width space. The same position on the downswing, we should have the hands in here over the thigh. So when you're doing your quarter swing, there'd be the quarter back and there'd be the quarter down. As soon as you start the downswing, your arms are going to come in as your body starts to transfer the weight. Not unlike using a hammer, you know, your wrist is going to cock up there. Do a little down cocking, it's called. But now as you start back down, if your elbow is out and we're above the plane, the more you're above the plane, the more it tends to throw away that centrifugal force or that lag. So it causes your hands to release too soon. And they're going to release too soon because you're in the habit of releasing too soon, even if you got the angle correct. So we have to learn how to keep that angle in the right wrist. So as I say, the two absolutes for you that are not true, but they're very practically correct, is that the right arm does not fold at all on the backswing, and the right wrist does not unrelease or doesn't release at all on the downswing either. Both of those are untrue, but they're very practical. And so you got better angle than you had here before, though. But as we watch with Ernie, when he's reached the thigh, he's still got that club up here. So that right wrist is very reluctant to release. It's only going to release at the bottom of the swing with centrifugal force.
And is that mostly going to be controlled about keeping that right arm in?
It's going to be mostly controlled by the path, the path coming in, the right elbow working properly and coming down on the correct plane, because the more I'm out here, the more centrifugal force releases that. The more I'm in here, the more that's retained, and the angle is retained. And then part of it's just habit too, because the path that you had, the swing that you had, got you in the habit of releasing early, so that's just your habit now. And then we got to flip the habit around a little bit, which we'll do gradually. That's one of the reasons why we've started with a quarter swing. But look how much more of a forward-leaning shaft you have here now than you had before. So even on a full swing, you got much better impact dynamics. Anytime you come in a little steep, the arms have to scrunch up a little bit, otherwise you hit it fat. So another guy with the same exact swing path would be complaining of hitting it fat, but he's in the habit of keeping his arms stretched out. And you've got sense enough to pull your arms in to avoid hitting it really fat. You measure yourself to the ball. Whereas Ernie on that path is able to keep the arms stretched out. And with the arms stretching out, the arms can work properly and the body can work properly. If the arms don't stretch out, and this is what we're looking at with a quarter swing. So again, the left elbow should always point to the ground or to the body as much as possible. Chicken wing is a result of coming in just a little bit this way. If we fix just the chicken wing, you'd be pulling it even more. And this one I think did go right because the chicken wing overrode the leftward tendency a little bit. But much better body action here, so the pivot is so much better back and through. So really, let's see if we can get that that position and then work a little bit on impact. And I got a couple of tools here with that in mind. So